This is going to be a fascinating discussion, okay? Matt Seiler has gone on record to say that half of the business will be automated. We've heard from some of the pioneering technologists, but let's find out a little bit more about what this really means for agencies and for brands. I'd like to welcome Sears, who's the SVP of the Rubicon project from the sales side, and the inimitable Matt Seiler, the global CEO of Mediabrands, to come to the stage. Gentlemen, the stage is yours. Enjoy the discussion. Enjoy the discussion.
Thank you, sir. Matt, before we sit down, stand with me here. So here you have, look at us. We look like we both walked out of maybe a Brooks Brothers catalog.
That's a little bit better than Brooks
A little
Brothers.
better than Brooks Brothers. And here we are, the poster boys of automation.
Who'd have thunk it?
Who would have thunk it?
So Charlie, you didn't say anything about having to be fascinating. What's that about? Really? Be fascinating. That's like be funny. Okay, thank you. Okay. Hi, Jay.
Hi, Matt. How are you?
Prepared to be fascinating. Yes.
Yeah, okay. So in the office, they call you Norma Ray. That's what I hear. Is that right?
Yeah, do y'all know what Norma Ray is? Like, do you get what that reference is? The one that said that there was a big problem coming and people didn't listen until the big problem came? Canary in a coal mine, does that work? Yeah, okay. So Canary in a coal mine, Norma Ray, Pied Piper. The business is changing. Everything you've heard all day is the business is changing. The business has changed. Yet we keep our heads firmly under the ground in the sand because we really don't like the idea that it's changing, because change is hard. So yeah, happy to be poster person, odd to be in that position, but it's here.
Yeah, good.
And you? What are you doing in this space?
Well, let's talk about how you and I got here, because it's been a long road. So when Matt and I originally met, it was in Wichita, Kansas, and it was 20 years ago. And we were both account guys at different agencies, and our mutual client was Pizza Hut. And I often tell the story that it was that client that launched me into a 20-year journey in digital, where I called them up that year we met, and I said, you wouldn't imagine this, but there are these computers all attached to one another. It's called the internet, and you're going to deliver pizza over those computers. To which they said, please go back and do your day job. And it was remarkable because when we were in Singapore a few weeks ago with Charlie, the regional head of Yum Brands was there, and he reported that in the past year they've sold $2 billion worth of pizza over the internet, that collection of computers. So,
Right, apropos of nothing really, but to be fascinating and to tell another Pizza Hut story that doesn't have to do with automation, because we've heard a lot about automation. So this is a story about how to know what business you're actually in and don't get confused by what the competition is doing. So Pizza Hut got into delivery a little bit late. Domino's was dominating. So they decided that they better get into the delivery business, and they became the second largest deliverer of anything in the United States, behind only the United States Postal Service. So ahead of FedEx, ahead of UPS, ahead of everyone. So if you get into the delivery business, you start thinking that you're in the business of delivery, not so much in the business of making awesome pizza or cleaning your bathrooms or things like that. So they got into an R&D trap where they started looking at Chinese food and video rental delivery. So know what business you're in, don't get distracted, and automate. Bringing it back to automation.
very good. So let's talk about, what do you, when you describe automation to clients and how we all kind of get there, what are some of the precedents, the other industry precedents you use?
We've heard it today. The New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, the financial markets, I think it was like 87 that they automated. And we, with our, again, heads in the sand, go, oh my God, we can't automate. There's no way that you can automate media. You can automate trillions and trillions of dollars. Wall Street has gone away. There are no people on Wall Street. There are big black boxes outside of Wall Street. And we say you can't automate. You can't possibly remove people from the process. Yet everything that is way bigger than we did it, what's that, almost 30 years ago? So
That's right.
I said this at lunch today, that I don't want to bring a crisis on us. But the reason that Wall Street automated was because of the crash of '87. So I wonder if we could sort of collectively agree not to have a crisis force us to change, not have something be outside of our own control, but actually take control of this to do what is so obvious and is around us everywhere.
Yeah, and I think the other story, when we talk to customers about, hey, why is this happening now, and other historical precedents, what's important to remember is we look at the financial markets, we talk about the Sabre system, which used to sell unsold airline seats for American Airlines.
Everyone used to call a travel agent, remember?
You would call a travel agent.
Yeah. Travel agents were people that you used to call on a telephone to make travel arrangements.
That's right, yeah. Or you look at eBay, I don't know if anybody knows the first items that were sold on eBay, they were used Pez dispensers, which is kind of gross. But eBay Autos...
Depends on what you use them for, I suppose.
I guess. And eBay Autos sells a new car every single minute. So what's interesting, and I think we can kind of relate it back to our advertising automation discussion, is all the innovation. If you look at the financial market example and the Sabre example and the eBay example, the innovation happened at the bottom of the market. With auction mechanics or with remnant or with unsold. And we've certainly seen that since 2007, 8. But what we've really seen and what's interesting, and I think we'll spend most of the rest of the time talking about, is automation is now hitting the rest of the market, right? Up and down the market. And the technology exists to do so many things that from where you sit and where I sit, we are seeing and maybe ourselves undergoing tremendous organizational transformation across media owners and their organizations, and then across the holding companies on your side of the fence.
Well, you know, I got the Norma Ray or Canary in the Coal Mine or Pied Piper or whatever because of putting a stake in the ground and saying that 50% of everything that we buy in the US would be automated by the end of 15. And that we will then take that to rest of world. And when I first brought that to our team, I said within 2 years. And they all went, holy shit, there's no possible way we can do that within 2 years. So I said, all right, make it 3, and then we're done having the conversation because the technology is there. You can do it now. And the problem is that we collectively get paid wrong, or if you're a client, you pay your agencies wrong, because we're not actually paid to be efficient. So what happens is an order comes over a fax machine, which again, you know, back in the time that you and I were doing Pizza Hut, we were getting rid of fax machines.
That's right.
But we're still using them to buy media, which is fascinating. So we send a fax over, and then we transcribe it from one piece of paper to another piece of paper to a third in order to input the order, or if they're not paper, they're screens. And there's an awesome opportunity to make mistakes along the way, and there's a great opportunity to piss away a lot of time, which is good, because if you're paid based on time, you can use a lot of it to do that inefficiently, or you can have other people go back and check your mistakes. So you look at that and go, that's just stupid. Like, there is technology in place and has been since the New York Stock Exchange was threatened by the NASDAQ to change this. And yet we're still using faxes and stuff. Like, what's the point? I mean, you felt the same thing. You were compelled to get into the problem solution business in this space. Is it as obvious to you as it, I think, is to me?
It is painfully obvious, but that's why I think we're at this point about the technology piece is kind of done. And now we're talking about organizational change. And you know, let's kind of put conclusion first here for a minute. So Charlie was talking to Dominic Proctor from Group M this morning, and towards the end, he was talking about there being a lot of pricing pressure from the advertiser customers, doing more with less, the smaller fees. And so let's put conclusion first. So automation is a means to what is a good question to ask. Yeah. And we can talk about it on the media owner side from what we see, but talk about it on the holding company side. It's a means to what?
I think there's two ends to automation. So one is a sort of internal process reengineering. In order for us to get to a 50% automation claim, we literally had to change the entire structure of Mediabrands. We had to put everything that can be bought into the same place so that it isn't about search, social, mobile, display, what have you. It was, oh no, we're going to market on behalf of an individual and we're going to use technology to do that. So internal process re-engineering, really, really, really hard. We talked before about how people hate change. Try doing it to 8,200 people at the same time who are being compensated well for doing what they've been doing, and go, no, it doesn't apply. Or go to your boss, as in my case, Michael Roth, to go, I need a lot of money to restructure everything. And his response was, but it's going so well. Why would you do that now? Because it's going so well. Now is the time to do it rather than when it's not going well.
Right.
And he said, will you promise me that you're not going to be back here in a year asking to do this again? And I said, no, I won't promise you that at all. Google restructures their entire company every 18 months.
Yeah.
I'll be back, Michael.
Yeah.
I'll be changing. So you have to look on the one side, how do you restructure your whole organization around an objective? And then the other is, it's great to say that you want to buy through automation, but people have to be willing to sell through automation in order for there to be a market. So we were blessed to put a consortium together that has literally every medium or every channel represented. That's to right. say, this is not about commoditization. This is not about destroying the value of your inventory. This is actually about getting a much faster way at your inventory to direct it at the people that you want. That was a really long intro. I didn't intend to go that long. Would you like to say something
good.
for a long time now?
No, but I'll say something for a short time.
Okay, good.
Yeah. I think that there are two pieces of automation, and everybody's focused on the programmatic piece. It's kind of the piece that everyone's been talking about. And the new piece there really is when you get beyond the auction into the direct orders. And we see folks becoming much more sophisticated, either on your side of the fence, where there are big DMP deployments for advertisers, CRM data, and now also on the media owner side, where the trading discussions with those media owners is not just about unique media assets, but more and more about unique data assets now too. So we look across some of the media owners on our platform, like a Guardian Media, or News Corp, Wall Street Journal, Financial Times, and they've all started to deploy this and now push it out to their sellers. So it's a pretty big innovation. But the second piece of automation is workflow. And I think that piece didn't really matter when we were talking about the auction. We were down kind of at the bottom. But as we now have to go early into the strategy process, early into the planning process, and you, in your hub and spoke model, your organizational model that you're looking at IPG, and different holding companies have different models, you need to connect the strategy piece to the planning piece to the execution piece. Yeah. And so that workflow starts to become essential. And that's when companies like ours got much closer to organizations like yours. So move just from being almost solely on the media owner side to saying, hey, we need to understand this whole other half of the process.
That wasn't short.
Well, that happens sometimes.
It's fair. No, but I think that, so we have something called the barbell. Actually, why we ended up doing the partnership with AOL1 was in part because when we met with them in Cannes last year, Tim brought their structure and said we call it the barbell, and we thought that's really bizarre because ours is too. And a barbell is on one side automation. It's everything that you can buy through automation, and on the other side is content, and what links them is production. And I think that if it were automation for the sake of automation, it's a really boring story. You know,
yes.
You can strip out costs, you can get people more pinpointed, see what they do. But it's save all of the unnecessary energy to reapply to where you want the energy to be, which is around storytelling. You know, do awesome content. Get rid of menial, unfulfilling labor and replace it with terribly fulfilling, very valuable labor to the tune of, you know, if you buy an adjacency, if you let a computer just say there's a 30-second hole, I think I'll fill it with an existing 30-second unit, it doesn't require a human being to be engaged with that, and the unit's already done. If, on the other hand, you say, I want Bob Pittman to help design some incredible on-air DJ experience that doesn't exist, we know that works way better, so let's spend our time and energy on the other end of the barbell around content that was brought to you courtesy of automation.
Got it. Okay.
Okay.
Let's talk about another one of the trends we're going to talk about, which is we like to say holding companies are going on a diet plan. That when we sit and talk to some of the holding companies, all the big ones, the discussion is, hey, over the course of the year, we do business with maybe 3,000 media companies. And anecdotally, they say, we'd like to take that number down to 300. In that automation is kind of a must-have in order to do that. and that those trading negotiations now have all the pieces of the puzzle: the custom piece, the order automation piece, and the auction piece. So what's that discussion like inside Mediabrands? And maybe tell everybody a little bit about Hubspoke.
Okay. As I do, I'll also refer to something that the last panel talked about, which is, and I think Steve mentioned it too, we're all measured by how much of our clients' money we spend, which seems like another sort of wrong thing to be measured by, because we talk about owned, shared, and earned all the time, but if we're incented to spend money, then you don't get to own, shared, and earned very quickly. So if you change your compensation model to be around business outcome, rather than how much of your client dollars are you spending, that's an important thing. So actually, I love the notion that the media landscape will shrink. It doesn't mean that the industry is suffering. It actually means that the industry is advancing. So fewer dollars would be a beautiful thing. With fewer dollars also, I think, comes fewer partners. So those that are best at aggregating audiences and can prove it are the ones that are going to get the dollars. Those that can associate aggregation of audience with content that they care about also get the dollars. So, we're in this bizarre moment in which we all have ridiculous, almost infinite choices of outlets. That's not sustainable. So a few aggregators, I don't know whether it's 300 or however many it's going to be, but the trusted brands that bring you the audience and distribute the content that you want. Like Rubicon, for example.
There you go.
And why is it Rubicon Project?
Why is it Rubicon Project?
Yeah, why is it a project?
Well, it's a lifelong project. I actually don't know the answer to that. It's kind of like crossing the Rubicon, I guess. That would
explain the Rubicon part, but not the project. But anyway.
Okay, what else should we talk about? So we talked Hub and Spoke. Give us a little bit more about Hub and Spoke, because that's you're keeping the planning and the strategy piece out in an operating agency, and you're centralizing the automation, the execution of the media inside Magna.
Yeah, I think that's the barbell. So I think I hope I'm not going to get in trouble for saying this, but the moment when media was taken out of creative agencies was probably not the very best moment for the creative agencies. And it took a long time for the media agencies to realize just what a gift they've been given. And it was mostly because planning went with buying. Buying's terribly, terribly important, but the planning with buying is really important. And I don't think there was ever really the intention to just get rid of media. It was, we'll do buying over here. But because a lot of the people who bought also planned, digital meant that, print meant that. So the logic finally went, we'll just let planning and buying go together. And unfortunately, all the data, all the analytics, all of every bit of real knowledge. I was running a strategic planning department for one of Omnicom's agencies at the time, and I remember the day that the OMD people were moving out and pointing to one of our really fantastic strategists going, there goes Judy, and with her all the data. So I think that, which left the planning department sort of full of opinions and not much else. But I think that we have the opportunity to not do that again. So what we've said is that the IPG Mediabrands agencies, content, product, research, strategy, tools, those are all the territory of the agencies who own the client relationship. And then buying is done in a separate group that can be really focused on driving the efficiencies that we all know can be there.
Let's talk about people for a minute. So we get a lot of questions about, well, what does this mean for each one of us and the employees in our respective organizations? And I'll give you my view, and then you can say. But for us, this is really about empowering people and allowing people to do more, and less of the mundane, less of the rote, the inefficient piece of it, and to really focus on the best pieces of their work. So yeah,
agree. But I also think if you, again, look at the financial markets, the kinds of people that got into the financial markets were not necessarily salespeople, but much more technology people and salespeople who really understood technology. If you look at the algorithms that exist in the financial markets, it's a wholly different crop. So I think, I have a fantasy in what we're doing with you and what we're doing with AOL and the other partners to have a trading floor that has the equivalent of a Bloomberg, on
That's
it,
right.
which is the AOL one and the Rubicon, but I want to have people on floors that are highly, highly skilled at getting the very best deal for the best audience for clients. Like, that's a really exciting job. It looks a little different from what I think a media planner or buyer does.
For
today.
sure, for sure. And it really is deliverable today. Again, with the technology is there, and it's really about this transformation we're going through. All right, so we're going to take the last 2 minutes, and Matt and I are going to play a word association game. So I'm going to mention a topic, and then each of us will say a word to describe that topic.
Deal, maybe.
All right, deal maybe. All right, Publicis Omnicom, or POG.
It's funny, I said maybe. Maybe I'll apply that to this. Maybe.
Maybe. All right, I'm going to say number 1. Martin Sorrell.
Not happy about number 1 being ceded to Publicis Omnicom.
All right, number 2.
And vocal about it.
That's right, exactly. Yahoo.
Really fascinating given how much of their business is not what their business is. But,
All right.
but there's hope.
The word for that is Alibaba.
That would be
okay.
the
All
word.
right. All right. Google.
Honest to God, committed to changing the world.
Diabolical.
Those don't have to be opposite one from the other.
Not necessarily. Agency trading desk.
Not well understood.
Moving upstream. 24-year-old media buyer.
Whirled by the reins.
Mathlete. The 50-year-old managing director.
Sharpen up.
Hiring mathletes. The media salesperson.
Opportunity to embrace change.
Data-driven authority. The insertion order.
An acronym.
Dead. Direct order automation.
Now.
Expected. First-party data.
Now.
Charlie's Festival of Media Global next year in 2015.
Genius.
All right, looking forward to it.
Thanks.
All right, thanks, Matt. Thanks, everybody.
Fun.
That was fun.